Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, and with me I have Emily Boo, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Oh, I'm not good at these. Hiya, my name's Emily Boo. I'm a YouTuber from Ipswich. I'm also a body piercer. Oh god, I hate talking about myself. It's just really stupid because my job is about talking about myself, but I don't know, I try to talk in my videos, I try to talk as if I'm talking to a friend. So it's a bit more chill than, oh, hi, my name's Emily and I had toast for breakfast. Like, do you know what I mean?
It's all good. Like, as I've said before, I probably know a lot of the answers to these questions, but I'll ask you some questions just generally, just so my audience can understand what we're talking about. So first and foremost, what subculture would you say that you fit into mostly?
So I label myself, if I have to label myself, as just alternative. I do use the word goth on social media because you say the word goth and everyone instantly knows what you mean. And I do get some comments about that. Like, oh, you're not goth. I'm like, I'm literally using it as a word. Leave me alone.
Language is subjective. Like, go away.
Yeah, plus it's less characters than alternative, and I can fit more words in the title.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would just say alternative. I like a little bit of everything, as long as it's black.
Yes. See, I'm kind of the same. When people say, "Oh, well, what is goth?" they automatically think of people who dress in all black, and therefore, when they see me, they're like, "Oh, you must be a goth because you only dress in all black." And I'm like, goth is a subculture based around primarily music, and then the style kind of came off of the music. So I don't know what you're talking about. I mean, I can appreciate some goth music, but I don't really have a music taste. But then again, I'm sure we can talk about goth elitism when it comes to, you can't listen to that. How dare you sully the name of goth?
Don't get me started on that.
When did you realise that you kind of like the darker things? Was it from a very young age, or did it, or has it just...
Oh, my ferret's making noise. So my mum is quite gothy and my dad's bikery, so I've grown up with an alternative kind of just everydayness, if that makes sense. Like skull pictures around the house, little things like that, have just always been normal to me since I was born, pretty much.
Yeah, because like a lot of people, again, it's another misconception. Goth is a phase. It's a phase. You'll grow out of it, and it's like, well, how long is a phase? Define. What are some misconceptions that you would say surrounding goth? Like, the whole "it's a phase" thing is something we've brought up, and talking about how it's not just all about like fashion. Are there any other misconceptions?
I really don't like how people assume if you are gothy or alternative that you don't have a job. That really, that drives me actually insane. Yeah. I'm covered in tattoos as well, so that's a big part of it. I've got face tattoos, and people assume if you have face tattoos, you cannot have a job. Like,
yeah,
these cost money. I need a job to pay for these.
You need money for those things.
Yeah,
it's bizarre as well when you look at different cultures, because I think in the UK and in the West it's associated with gangs. For some reason, like, you must be in a gang. Like, I don't know. I haven't got any tattoos. I've got 2 tattoo ideas that I've always really wanted, but I'm broke, so I can't. Like, I'll probably be 60 by the time I get them, which is fine. But I don't know how well I would slot into a gang. Like, I
know, like, we could join, like, Backstreet Boys gang.
Backstreet Boys gang. I think I accidentally joined a gang once, because I was wearing a My Chemical Romance t-shirt, the gothiest of goth things, obviously. and this, like, for lack of a better term, chav, a very nice chav, I will say, asked me for a lighter, and he was like, "Thanks, MCR girl." see you around. And then every time I saw them around the place where the kids used to hang out and smoke the devil's lettuce, they'd be like, hey, if you ever need anyone doing it, let us know. And I'm like, thanks. I'm 14, but thank you. I don't need anybody offing, but thank you for the offer. I appreciate it. So I guess being not a goth, but in their eyes a goth, I joined a gang that wasn't goth, so I suppose that all worked out. I like to think that they're still there, to be honest, like 10 years on. I like to think they're still there behind the back of the baths and just still doing that and shouting at goth people, but in a friendly way.
Yeah, I like that.
I like to think of them still doing that, if I'm honest. I think it would make, you know, I have been shouted at before, obviously. I think all people who dress, even if they're not in the subculture or if they're not in a subculture, if they look a bit different, you're going to get yelled at, unfortunately. When Kaya, Toxic Tears, did her video on what not to say to goths, and she'd be like, people would like shout things and throw things at you. I have had that, but not as bad, and most of it has been drunk or high chavs, so it's really, you know.
You know, I found as I've gotten older, I don't get half as many comments or anything as I did when I was a teenager. But I did get woofed at today, and I was so happy. I was like, oh my god, do they think I'm a teenager? Do they think I'm just gonna accept this? Like,
oh my gosh.
Like, they were in a car and they put their window down and they woofed, and I was like, oh mate, because when I was a teenager I just used to accept it, but had you not have been in a car, and I would have shouted back.
They're too far away now, I can't hear you anymore.
By the time I thought of something sassy to say, they're already down the road.
Have you noticed a difference in the way that goths are treated as well? Because I feel like there's been a shift into the romanticization of goths, like the big titty goth girlfriend. It's like, I'm not necessarily saying it's directly positive. Like, I don't think fetishizing an entire group of people is a good thing. But if we're like, say, like on a scale of having rocks thrown at you to big titty goth girlfriend, I feel like there's now a romanticization of them, which is very odd to me. It's like a switch in subculture.
So I went to London a couple of weeks ago with Kaya, Toxic Tears, and we went to an alternative club. And by the time we left it was about 2:00 in the morning, and there was drunken older men around, and they actually linked arms with our little group, and we started saying like how we were wearing PVC, but like just normal, what I would class as like normal alternative clothing. But they were going like, oh, you're so sexy and you're like S&M clothes. And this was making me so uncomfortable. I don't want men's opinion in general, but I don't want you to tell me that it's sexy. It made me really uncomfortable.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the things that goths are associated with have also been objectified, like corsets are now seen as something that is only for the bedroom. Like, looking for corsets online, you'll see them in the lingerie section. I'm like, hang on a minute.
Yeah.
Why is this in the lingerie? How are you wearing corsets? Are you wearing them under? What, that defeats the point of the corset, surely. Not just like basic training corsets, but like fashion corsets would be in the lingerie section. I'm like, why would you spend up to £200 on a beautiful steel bone corset with so many patterns just to shove a top over it? What's the point? That sounds stupid. As well, and like the PVC and the latex, all of that has kind of also been associated with perhaps the BDSM culture, which is absolutely fine. I got no problem with BDSM, but they seem to interlink in a very strange manner. Like, and I'm not quite sure why. Maybe it's back in the history of it. Maybe BDSM culture also had an interlink with goth culture and it's not been separated, because I'm sure you can be kinky as hell and not have anything to do with goth and vice versa.
Oh yeah, 100%. I think it's just stupid, close-minded people that they just see one thing and they're like, oh yes, that's what I think it is, rather than opening their mind and seeing, oh, okay, maybe it's something else. Like I find being gothy, when I dress gothy, people assume that you are kinky as well. Like that's something I get a lot. Like, well, I used to work in a pub in a Wetherspoons, and oh my god, the comments I get, like, just absolutely disgusting.
No offense to Christian mums, but I have a feeling that Christian mums are responsible. Like you see those posts like, look at the children are doing this now. We must protect the children from something or other that we need to protect the children from. Sometimes they're right, a lot of the time they're wrong.
You haven't got to protect the children from goths. You got to protect them from the Pope, love.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's always the Catholics, isn't it? Isn't it? No offense to the Catholics, but you've got to kind of
religion is the devil, though. I am so against religion.
The history of things being stigmatized has come from the Catholic Church. I mean, this is a whole other spiel, but I talked about SRA, satanic ritual, because I can't say that on YouTube. Have you heard of the conspiracy theory?
I have not.
It's basically the idea that politicians and priests meet up in the middle of the woods to children.
They 100% do.
This was a whole thing in like the 80s. It came around with like the SK panic, went with like the Manson case and that, and they thought these people just gather in the forest without any evidence, by the way, whatsoever. And the people who were promoting this idea that the children, we must protect them. Oh, that was the Catholic Church. It's kind of anti-Semitic because the idea of SRA comes from blood libel, which is the same idea, just replace like priests and politicians with Jews. Apparently, I'm ethnically Jewish. I didn't get the memo. That's what we did, meeting up in our basements. I'm praying to Satan because people are very confused about that. Like, I think it comes from the idea that because Jews don't believe in Jesus, therefore they must worship the devil. If you can't have Jesus in your life, then it must be to do with the devil.
It has to be one or the other.
You can't. Yeah, it's like pick a side, YouTube. Children are undesirables. Pick a side, choose Jesus or Satan. It's one of those hollow categorized things. But the interesting thing about that is, while all of this panic was going on, what was the Catholic Church doing? Like, it's almost like projection, one could say, that it's actually the Catholic Church, not Catholics as a whole. I'm sure all of you are very lovely. But they seem to have invented this to be like, well, gotta take the heat off of us, bruv. What would you also say are probably other misconceptions about goths that go around, aside from what we've discussed? I mean, you could probably add worshipping the devil there as well.
Yeah, definitely. See, I'm so old. I used to get that all the time when I was a teenager. Oh, you must worship Satan. Like, no. And then you do the whole, no, Satan worships me. Like, oh my god, how cringy.
I will say one thing that I absolutely adore is I'm pagan. I'm roughly Wiccan. I'm not really strictly to a religion, but I like the idea of Wicca because it's the most simplistic thing. I mean, the closest thing to a Bible we have is a very short poem that basically says, please don't be mean, or things will happen to you because you're mean. So just be chill and don't be a dickhead. And I quite like that idea. That sounds nice. But the pentagram is the symbol of Wicca. And what makes me laugh is when, like, you see, like, there's the pentagram, which is Wicca, and then there's the inverted pentagram, or the pentacle, which is Satanism. And people, like, all these, like, brands will cater to, like, goth girls, like teenagers, and they'll say the pentagram, and I'm like, oh, there's nothing more rebellious than celebrating the 5 elements in harmony. Like, nothing. Like, because that's what it is. It's fire, wind, earth, air, spirit. And these people are, like, wearing logos on of the t-shirt, and I'm like, do you understand what that is? And they're like, yeah, it's the satanic pentagram. I'm like, no, look again. They're like, beautiful.
Oh dear.
And if we're talking about goth, I wanted to talk about something else, because you do videos on anti-hauls, which is really interesting, which I appreciate because now I avoid most of those brands, except for Killstar, only on sales as well, but I've never personally had a bad problem with Killstar. I won't buy brand new from them, number one because of the price, and number two because they're a bit shit. So if I'm going to give them money, then they can have a slice of the money that they would have had at full price.
Yeah, because it seems to be, Killstar seem to be literally 50-50. You either have had all bad experiences or you've had all good ones. And it's crazy how people have such different experiences with a brand. But I wonder if it's people that know what they used to be like 'cause they used to be so good, and everything they do now just doesn't compare to it. I can totally see how if you just went on and bought something now, you would see why it's good.
Yeah, I mean the shoes that you showed, the Luna high tops, I fell in love with.
I miss them.
I loved them so much. I searched high and low, and then bam, on Vinted, my size, and I was like, yes, I'll take those. I'll take them. Haven't worn them very much because I kind of, I'm scared of the zip. Like you said, I'm scared of the zip. Do come out with some bangers, to be fair, but when it fails really hard, and not even just on aesthetically, but quality-wise.
Yeah. That's what gets me, especially with their shoes, because my feet always hurt. I don't know why, they just always hurt. And I just know that if I wear a pair of their shoes, they're going to break at the most inconvenient moment. It's not going to be while I'm sat at home, is it? It's going to be while I'm in Tesco doing my shopping.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of there's a rising problem with ethics, particularly in goth fashion, because it's been so popularized. And it's not even goth anymore, to be honest. It's just this thing that's ripped and is black, with AliExpress. If any clothing says that it's from Asia, I won't buy it, because I know the laws over there with Asia, and basically they're all child workers. Probably all of them are child workers, which leads into the problem with human trafficking, because once a child can no longer sew for 20 hours a day, then they get put into doing adult work, which is why I avoid it. If it says made in Indonesia, Bangladesh, China, I'm like, I'm not going to buy that. And to see AliExpress and this lot picking up goth is very, again, I know they're trying to keep up with the trend, but it's very annoying, especially because I know that goth used to come from DIY roots, make it yourself, and for it to be so commercialized is it kind of takes away from, I understand not everybody's crafty, not everybody's going to want to make everything, that's absolutely fine, but at the same time it's commercializing it and then doing it in an unethical way is like a double slap.
Yeah, I get you. Do you know what? Honestly, it breaks my heart to say it. People don't care. They really do not care. I made my video about Shein, and I put literal proof in it. They cannot prove that they work in safe factories, and they cannot prove that they do not hire children. And I put it all in the video. I'm like, guys, this is the facts of where your alternative fashion comes from. And people literally, the amount of abuse I got on my video of that, people were like, well, where do you expect me to shop? I'm like, in places that don't hire children.
I mean, I'm pretty much 70% of my wardrobe is secondhand. I want to go from completely unethical to completely sustainable. I'm pretty solidly leaning towards sustainable, because I will only, obviously shoes and underwear and bras, I'm not going to mostly buy secondhand, because, shoes, when you get them secondhand, they're not in good condition, and the other two are just unhygienic. But for most of my clothes, I'll get them from Vinted, or I'll get them from eBay, or I'll get them from charity shops. So I like doing that. I like it. It makes it fun. I get to go on a little hunt. So when people are like, well, where do you want me to go? And then I give them all these, because I did a video on sustainable fashion and how to be sustainable and ethical. And they were like, well, what if I can't afford it? And I'm like, I can understand if you desperately need to go to Primark to get a pair of jeans. If you need a pair of work trousers and there's only, there's Primark and that's in your range, absolutely fine, go there. Not an absolutist. If you absolutely need something, no problem. But if you're looking specifically for things, then I would recommend looking at these other options first.
100%. I am obsessed with Depop. I check it every day. I love it so much because you can, not only are you finding things that, well, usually that are hard to find. It's usually stuff that's out of fashion, but that's exactly when I want it. But it's cheaper and you're helping someone out. And yeah, I mean, it might be from a bad company, but they've already got the money. So you buying it secondhand, it's not adding more money to the bad company. Like I buy Killstar from Depop because there are a few things from Killstar that I want, but I just don't want them to have my money. So,
exactly.
Yeah.
And it's good for things also just on a more shallow note, things that are like limited edition and they're no longer there. Yeah. So you can find things that aren't there anyway. I don't understand the controversy behind just trying to find other things. I'm not saying that a single mother of 3 children who's only got one wage should be ignoring her child's needs, but it annoys me when these YouTubers do $500 Shein haul and I'm like, how did you spend that much to begin with? And it's like you said, so many of these things will just be put for second, because I searched Shein on Vinted and I swear to God I found 4 of the same t-shirt in the exact same size.
Wow.
I was like, really guys, why did you buy this? Because if you have the money to buy things you don't need, why not save up and get something that you do need from an ethical and sustainable brand? I don't have a problem, again, like single mothers or single fathers, who are struggling. But when you have the money, if you have especially if you're a YouTuber and you've got X amount of subscribers and you can get £1,000 or $1,000 of Shein goods, maybe it's just me. But
no. So on those videos, right? So Shein messaged me. Shein, Romwe, Zaffle, Dress Lily. They all message me at least once a week and offer me about £500 haul videos, and they do it for free. Or they offer to pay you on top of that. And I'm like, no.
What do you think of mental health merch?
So I really hate any form of glamorizing mental health. Because as someone that suffers from mental health every day, walk down the street and see someone almost take the piss out of it, it's absolutely disgusting. I was bullied in high school so badly because of my mental health, and then you see it almost being in fashion. No.
It's so bizarre to me that they make these creative choices when it comes to mental health merch, or racially insensitive merch, or cultural appropriation merch is so bizarre to me. I mean, the only thing I really don't particularly mind is cheap pow and kimonos. Generally, a lot of people get very confused when they see Westerners making kimono and cheap pow. It's a very strange debate because East Asian people in the West think it's cultural appropriation, whereas people native to China and Japan don't mind, because the kimono and the chi pao don't have any spiritual significance whatsoever. In fact, the chi pao, which is the Chinese Mandarin collar, is inspired by flapper dresses in the West. So I don't have in turn, the kimono is actually based off the Chinese hanfu. It's a big debate because cultural appropriation in of itself is a neutral term. Something being culturally appropriated isn't necessarily negative, Bollywood taking the piss of Hollywood. Although it is cultural appropriation in essence, it's not offensive because it doesn't harm a particular group. But then you see Native American headdresses being sold, and it's really, guys, why are we doing this?
I'm not sure where I stand on cultural appropriation. So I've got to word this right. I think I where do you draw the line? I don't like to wear pentagrams or pentangles or crosses, because I see those as a religious thing, and I am not part of those religions, so I don't wear those items. But then, saying that, where do you draw the line at cultural appropriation? So I had someone on TikTok the other day, and we all know how serious TikTok is, tell me that my stretched ears were cultural appropriation. And, well, so are tattoos then. So are piercings. So is dyed hair. Like, this all started somewhere. And so where do we draw the line? So I don't like to get...
Yeah. There was a phase of, like, people being really protective over the kimono. And so when Shein and, like, that would make kimonos, they'd be like, oh my god, this is terrible. The Japanese and Chinese don't care. If you fold it the wrong way, it can indicate death. So if you were to, like, if you fold it, like, over one way, because it's the way that it's folded at funerals. But if you, because there was a massive thing about Katy Perry dressing up in a kimono and people were upset about it. But generally, a lot of people in Japan wouldn't care if you, like, made it sexy or if you even cut it up or do what, because it's got no religious or spiritual significance. It's a piece of clothing, which isn't originally Japanese, it's Chinese. So I saw a lot of people getting quite upset about that. Like, there was the girl who who dared to wear a cheapao to prom. How could she wear a dress to an event? Like, a lot of people, white people, going, this is very offensive. Chinese people didn't care. They thought she looked stunning, and I think she looked stunning. She did. Whereas you have Native Americans who clearly have made their feelings on headdresses known. And people still, like, they've made it known, and they're like, we do care about this, and we would not like it to be seen. And then you have, like, Chinese and Japanese people going, hi, you can wear the cheapao and the kimono, please do, in fact, because the sales of kimonos and cheapaos have been going downhill since the introduction of Western clothing. So if anyone wanted to wear cheapao or kimono, then I would suggest buying from owners who live there.
Yes.
Because it helps fund their business. I mean, I think most of the kimono sales are from tourists. So by not wearing them, you're actually kind of, like, screwing them. And even if it's, like, not from a Japanese company or a Chinese company, they don't take problems with people taking inspiration from the style. But then you have people saying, look at this American headdress. First of all, I don't know why you would wear it, like, in a practical sense, because I don't have a singular outfit in my drawer that I'd be like, yeah, I'm gonna just wear this headdress today. I don't understand that. But I also just don't understand the appeal. When it's very confusing.
It's like social repose. He annoys the crap out of me, and he has been told by people that it's not right and it's offensive, and he just doesn't give a shit. And he's an alternative person, and I hate that, because that then reflects on us.
Yeah, I mean, I don't generally care if people want to have tattoos, that's fine. Tattoos have been found all over the globe. They've been done in Asia, they've been done in Africa, they've been done in Europe with the Celts. They have tattoos. All those kind of stretch ears, that's been done in Europe without any interaction with the rest of the world. So I think, because a lot of people are quite sensitive about it, because I think it's part of their personal beliefs and personal culture, and because people have literally come over and colonized them and they've stolen their shit, then I can understand why I'd be quite angry about it myself.
Yeah. I know nothing about the world. I got told off in my latest video because I said I'm going to America. And I said I'm going to California, and someone said that that's really offensive because I'm going to the United States, I'm not going to America. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to stop talking. I'm not going to do videos anymore.
can understand where all of these things have come from in a historical context and why people wouldn't want things. Some people are like, oh, it's just a piece of clothing. When not really. I mean, even in the West, we assign things that are objects of importance. Wedding rings. I think you'd be quite pissed off if somebody stole your wedding ring, because it means something of sentimental value to you. You've put value on that. There are things in the West that would be quite upset if people stole, because we've ascribed some sort of value to it. So to say it's just a headdress or it's just this, well, no, because we've subscribed value to all kinds of objects throughout the years.
Yeah, definitely.
This got quite deep.
See, this is stuff that I don't talk about on videos, because I usually I'll end up saying the wrong thing, and I don't mean to, and
I don't think there really is such a long thing. I mean, I think it's important to note that obviously people of colour and people of different groups aren't a monolith. You will probably find a Native American that doesn't care about headdresses that much. And I think it's quite hard for the majority group to kind of come to terms with when it comes to the ethics of appropriation. I think everybody together can say that mental health merch is abhorrent, because it objectively is abhorrent. Like, there's no other way you can really phrase having, this is my anxiety shirt. Like, there's no way of really saying that's a good thing. I don't think anybody with anxiety truly would be like, because we have a common understanding of what that entails and what that mental illness entails, and it's quite cut and dry. But when it comes to people of colour, experiences vary. Again, people in the West who are of colour and of heritage tend to be more protective over their culture than natives, because they don't care that much. So I think that is interesting. You can say that most people with mental health problems would have a problem with it being glamorized. I guess it really just depends on your perspective. And with it all coming back, I think it all comes back to goth as well, because goth in itself, a lot of people can be quite protective over goth and somewhat elitist in some, like, because I wouldn't describe myself as a goth by category, but even people who are goths, there may be some elitists that are like, why are you wearing pink? Why are you wearing pink? That's not a goth colour.
God, I cannot stand goth elitists. Like, they proper infuriate me, and YouTube's full of them.
Yeah, like I said, even though goth is was traditionally DIY, the purpose of it being DIY was because there weren't many goth stores. So the idea that goth has to be DIY is based on the scarcity of goth brands and stores to begin with. So, but now because you've been given stores that are catered towards more alternative people, accepting brand deals and sponsors from them is inherently bad, because why are you not making that from scratch? Why are you not sewing every single seam? How could you? Betrayal.
Yeah, I mean, some of us are parents. We work. We don't have. I used to sew every single thing I wore. When I was a teenager, I would not wear something unless I had customized it in some way. I just don't have time to do that now, and I would absolutely love to do it, but no, I just don't have the time to sit down and make something.
Yeah. I can imagine, just watching, watching people make skirts. It took them 14 hours. I'm like, how? How did you make that? I mean, they could do a full-on video showing me how, and I'd still be amazed by it.
Yeah.
But I think it comes back to the way that the world is. I mean, goth is, I'm not going to say goth, hate crime on alternative people doesn't exist, because it blatantly does. Being goth is illegal in many countries. Having tattoos is illegal in many countries. Again, with the perception of tattoos in the West, while some people may consider it to be being part of a gang, it's not necessarily illegal. Whereas if you go over to Asia, because they've had a history with tattooing when it came to World War II and prisoners of war, it's still maybe in some places it will be illegal, and others it will just be highly frowned upon, because it can bring back some racial trauma in a way based on how they were treated by the enemy, which is I don't know if you knew that, but that's why a lot of places like South Korea and Japan look really badly on tattoos, because it's associated with the way prisoners of war were treated. And getting past that stigma is quite bad. But that's why if you ever went to those countries, people would look at you like they might consider it quite offensive because of what happened there, which is close-minded, but it's more of a reasonable leap than many other things like black equals Satan. At least there's like historical context there, but maybe in more modern times, as the years go on, they'll be able to distance themselves from that association.
I hope so, because we need to. That's it. I don't know what I was going to say.
Some of the laws are quite archaic. I mean, a lot of Chinese culture, for example, is based on Confucianism. He was a philosopher, and he basically was responsible for the entire founding of Chinese society. And in Confucianism, the idea is that your body belongs to your parents. So for as long as you live, your body is your parents. A lot of people couldn't cut their hair, like back in ancient China, they wouldn't cut their hair. Some people would, when they cut their nails, would keep it in a jar because it belonged to their parents. It's very bizarre. I don't think people would do that anymore, but that's basically extremes. So I can imagine wanting to get even just your ears pierced in China. Like, you can't really do that, because although maybe it's not like a conscious thought, like people aren't actually consciously thinking, no, you belong to your parents. It's more the way the belief has festered in society, and it's just become obey your parents rather than your parents own your body.
I wouldn't get along with that.
It's interesting, definitely. It's very odd to explain to Westerners. They're like, why do a lot of Chinese people have long hair? Oh, well, you see, your parents own you. And it's like, what? That's archaic. And it's like, yes, it is. Yes, it is. So, yeah. But then again, the state of China today doesn't give me much hope either. I can't think of anything else that I've here to ask, but I think we've covered a lot. We've gone from what is goth, misconceptions of goth. We've done a lot about goth, and also ethics in general when it comes to fashion. I think everyone, no matter how, if they're goth or not, could stand to be a little bit more ethical when it comes to clothing. But I think it is quite prevalent with the rise of goth being popularized.
TikTok, I think, has had a huge part to play in that.
Yeah, I haven't got TikTok. I'll watch compilation videos of like Genshin Impact, because like I love that game. But I know there's a lot of weird stuff that happens on TikTok. Explain goth TikTok to me.
So it's just it's loads of, I can't explain it. It's just parts of it are really inspiring. Like loads of the videos that pop up on mine are people DIYing their clothes, but like quick, like make a dress in 3 snips, things like that. Yeah, it does get very addictive.
I can imagine like quick form videos do get quite. You keep scrolling. You scroll forever. Or is it doom scrolling? Scrolling something. Is there anything that you, like any prominent issues in the goth community that you think are like should be talked about more? You can be controversial. No one's going to watch this video.
I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you who's rude. I would love to, but I'm not going to get into trouble.
Is there any like issues in the community, or do you think as a whole, like in the like even just in alternative, are there any prominent issues that you think should be talked about more?
I'm just pretty laid back. Like not a lot bothers me, even though I've just been sat here going like, oh, that really annoys me. I really just don't like elitism, and I think, and because I do YouTube, there are a couple of channels that I've seen that do alternative channels. I'll add that do make videos like, oh, this person's not a goth, and it's like, it doesn't matter. Let them live their life. If they're happy, it's not like physically hurting you, is it?
Yeah, because it's one of those cultures where some people may do things like that could harm the overall image of goth and what goth is. And most of the time, if it's somebody just dressing a little bit differently, it's not going to harm anybody. If not, someone not conforming 100% to a T isn't going to cause any problems or mass offense for an entire group. Like, yeah.
I hate it.
I think we've talked for quite a while, so is there anything else you want to say, like and you don't have to spill any tea or anything, obviously, but like anything generally passing when it comes to like the subculture or goth, or even your own channel generally?
Anything what, sorry?
Anything like goth or subculture or anything, like a final say on like anything in particular, or even just your channel, really.
I think the scene as a whole is so lovely and it's so welcoming. Like, I don't know about you, but if I see someone walking down the street that looks like they might like the same thing as me, like, you do a little nod and you just like do a little smile, and I don't find that with any other real groups of people. Like, you don't see chavs walking down the road like nodding at each other, do you?
Avoiding each other more like.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we've pretty much talked for a while. My mouth hurts. Not my mouth, my throat hurts a little bit. But it's been really good having you on and just having a chat about general things. And yeah, I'm shattered. So thanks guys for watching this video. Emily's channel will be linked down in the description below, and I hope I see you guys in the next video. Bye.